In the last lesson, we created and managed to move a paddle up and down. Now in this lesson, we're going to figure out how we can create another paddle, but we don't want to repeat all the code that we've written so far, so we're probably going to need the help of a separate paddle class. So if you haven't already created your paddle inside a separate file and a separate class, then this is the time to refactor your code so that you can create another paddle object from the paddle class easily and effortlessly. Here's what we're aiming for. We're aiming to get rid of all of this paddle related code and move it into a separate paddle class. And then subsequently, we want to be able to create a right paddle simply by creating it from the paddle class. And then we can create a left paddle from the paddle class. Now, because the right paddle has a different coordinate from the left paddle, we'll need to pass in the position of the right and left paddle as a tuple. So we might say something like the x will be 350 and the y will be 0. And on the left paddle, the x will be minus 350 and the y will be 0. So have a think about how you can make this code work and refactor this code into a separate paddle class. And this paddle class should inherit from the turtle class. Overall, our program should work pretty much the same as before, the only difference being that we now have a left paddle which can move up and down with the W and S keys on the keyboard. Pause the video and try to complete this challenge. Alright, so the first thing we're going to need is a new file, which is going to be called paddle.py. And paddle.py is going to need the turtle class from the turtle module. So let's go ahead and import it. And then I'm going to create this paddle class. And of course, all classes start off with a capital letter. Now, this class is going to take all of this paddle creation code, and it's going to carry it out when we initialize a new paddle object. This paddle object, in order for it to be a turtle object, we're going to get it to inherit from the turtle class like this. And in order to get all of the abilities, the methods, and the attributes of the turtle class, we need to get the superclass to initialize itself. The next thing we're going to do is figure out how we can get our paddle to change its shape, change its color, and all of these other things. So we can get rid of this line entirely because our paddle class is now the same as a turtle class. And then for the rest of these, instead of writing paddle.shape or paddle.color, we're going to hit Command R or simply go to Edit, Find, and then Replace, and you can take a look at the shortcut on your computer of how to get hold of this replace screen. So what I want to replace is everything that is paddle dot here in my code, and I'm going to replace it with self dot, because now we're inside the paddle class, which is effectively the same as a turtle class with some added extras. We can tap into our methods and our attributes by simply using the self keyword. Now, the very last thing we need to do in order to make this work is to go ahead and import our paddle from the paddle.py. And once we've imported it, we need to address this warning. Notice how it's highlighting this area and it's telling us that this is an unexpected argument because the paddle class doesn't actually take any inputs when it's initialized. It's just got the self here. But in fact, we do need a position being passed over. So this position is going to determine where the paddle is going to go to. Because remember, the left paddle is going to have a different coordinate from the right paddle. So now that we've fixed that, this is now completely valid code. And if we run our code as it is, you'll see our paddles being created and looking exactly the same way as before, but now we've got one extra paddle. Going down here with our go up and go down methods, ideally we would want them to live within our paddle class. So we want them to be methods inside this class. And remember that methods always have a first attribute as the self. Now, in addition, we have to again replace this paddle dot with self dot so that it's actually referring to the object that's created from this class to get its y coordinate or get its x coordinate. Now, coming back to our main.py, we'll have to modify this code a little bit because this go up and go down function is now gone, and instead we now have the right paddle dot go up and right paddle dot go down. So the right paddle is going to be controlled by the up and down keys, but the left paddle, we can get it to be controlled by some other keys. Now in our case, I'm going to choose the W key to go up and the S key to go down. So we're going to need another set of these screen.onKey method calls. But in this case, this is going to get the left paddle to go up and the left paddle to go down. And the go up is controlled by the W key and the go down is controlled by the S key. So now if we run our code, you can see that when I move W, it goes up. When I move S, it goes down, and up and down moves the right-sided paddle. So notice how now that we've refactored our paddle related code into a completely separate class, firstly, our main.py is now a lot simpler. It's clear of all of this paddle related code. And on top of that, if I wanted to create a third paddle, let's say I wanted to create a top paddle for some reason, then all I have to do is just call the paddle class and then pass in a tuple for the location of this paddle. So let's put it at, 100 by 100. If I hit run, you can see there's a third random paddle, and I didn't have to write any of this extra code or any of the related methods. We can create as many of these paddles as we want because we've now got this paddle class. So with these examples, I hope you're getting the sense of how important classes are and just how important they are when it comes to the development of a more complex project like this Pong game. Now in the next lesson, we're going to continue building out our program and we're going to create our ball class and get the ball moving.